What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. All right, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to discuss with you today in regards with Tropical Storm Melissa, as we are on the cusp of some, what I would dare to say, historic intensification over the next few days. I'm calling it right now. The environmental conditions are becoming increasingly favorable for some very explosive and very historic intensification over in the Caribbean Sea. So with that being said, as we continue to look at the threats for Haiti, Jamaica, Cuba, the Bahamas, and Florida, we have a lot to talk to you about, so we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. All right, so starting off, we have Tropical Storm Melissa as of the 10 a.m., 11 a.m. advisory. We can pull this up for you right now. Here's the latest public advisory. Maximum sustained winds are still at 50 miles per hour, which may not seem that strong right now, but this is a scary 50 miles per hour if you ask me, given the conditions it has ahead of it. Minimum central pressure has dropped to 1,000 millibars, so this is already a low pressure for potential 50 mile per hour tropical storm at this current point. It's moving west-northwest at 2 miles per hour, so it's pretty much stalling and drifting over in this part of the Caribbean right now. And you can also see in the headline, Melissa drifting west-northwestward in the central Caribbean. Heavy rainfall and flooding expected over portions of Hispaniola and Jamaica over the remainder of this week. So that's what we're dealing with right here. We have tropical storm force winds extending outward 115 miles from the center at this current point in time. Multiple inches of rainfall expected for parts of Hispaniola, for Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Haiti. 5 to 10 inches of rain expected, as well as the winds potentially for parts of Haiti. We still have a hurricane watch in effect for Haiti, and a tropical storm watch in effect for Jamaica. So that's also something we need to keep in mind too. And here is the discussion, and we also have quite a few changes too in terms of the track as well that this is going to bring up too. Here's the situation. While Melissa continues to produce bursting convection on satellite imagery with very cold cloud tops down to minus 95 degrees Celsius, there's little evidence that these convective bands are wrapping around the center. So just to give you an idea of just how cold 95 degrees Celsius cloud tops are in this part of the Atlantic, to give you an idea of just how cold it is, this is the type of cloud tops you would see in a potential super typhoon in the Western Pacific. That's how cold these cloud tops are. Those don't translate to intensity. Those just translate to convection and translate to potential rainfall. So I want to make that clear right off the bat. But still, this is Westpac cloud top temperatures right here, and that's something we really need to pay attention to. We still have a lot of shear, 20 to 25 knots, currently preventing the MLC and the LLC from aligning at this current point, so that's going to probably subside most likely in the next couple of days or so. So that's the main inhibitor at this current point. There's not much dry air anymore. It's mainly the wind shear that needs to calm down, and it is forecasted to calm down in the next 24 to 48 hours or so. So that's something we're going to need to pay attention to. But here's what we got for you right here. Here's the kicker. The tropical storm is slowed down to a crawl this morning with the estimated motion at 2 knots, which is 2 miles per hour, give or take 2.3. The track forecast remains challenging today, strongly related to the storm structure in the short term. For the next 12 to 24 hours, Melissa is forecast to move very slowly to the northwest as it attempts to move into a weakness produced by an upper-level trough over the Bahamas. Whether or not it turns into this more rightward turn is related to the vertical depth in various model guidance depicting. And it kind of goes over some of the models. We'll get more into that a little bit later. But basically, the short of this is going to be a tricky forecast, but they are shifting the cone further and further to the southwest, away from Jamaica, and deeper into the Caribbean. Here's what we have for you as well. This is also the intensity forecast. The intensity forecast has its own share of challenges. At least in the short term, the vertical shear is expected to persist between 20 to 30 knots and will likely prevent Melissa from becoming fully aligned and taking advantage over the warm 30 to 31 degrees sea surface temperatures. If you're wondering why we're seeing so much convection and why we're seeing such cold cloud tops right now. This is the reason why. These water temperatures are the biggest reason why we are seeing a huge amount of bursts of convection right now. Is it organized convection right now? Not really, but that's the main reason why we're seeing seeing that happening. After 48 hours, the GFS and European-based ships guidance shows the shear decreasing gradually, but the timing on the system becomes more vertically coherent, varies among the global and hurricane range guidance. Most of the guidance shows significant or even rapid intensification in days 3 through 5, and the NHC intensity forecast is raised once again during this time frame, but not as high as the HCCA or hurricane regional models due to consistent continuity constraints of the previous forecast. The day forecast now shows Melissa becoming a major hurricane, and further upward adjustments may be necessary in subsequent cycles. The intensity forecast also is more uncertain than usual, in large part related to track certainty. Uncertainty. Excuse me. Sorry for stumbling right there, but here's their initial intensity forecast right here: 120 miles per hour by 5 days out. That is a major hurricane right then and there. And there's a huge possibility, like the forecast said, that they might update this, and this might go even higher. Well, this is why I said this may not seem like much right now. A 50 miles per hour may not seem like much, but it's a scary 50 miles per hour if you ask me, with the conditions it has ahead of it. You're going to start gradually strengthening over the next 60 hours, then it becomes more rapid, and after that, after 3 days, and then going into day 5. So that's something you're going to want to pay attention to right there. And we can go ahead and pull up the cone for you guys right here, as that's trying to get to load up right there. It's taking its sweet time doing that. Okay, perfect. We got this for you right here. Here's the cone for you, ladies and gentlemen. This is a dramatic shift compared to what we saw yesterday. Yesterday, this system was expected to kind of stall and over just very close to Jamaica. Now it's expected to move west-south of Jamaica at this current point. That's how much of a shift we've seen. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and pull up the archive with this and take a quick gander. At the graphics archive just to show you what we saw here. We're going to go ahead and go to the 5-day cone with this right here, just to show you what we were seeing at this point yesterday. This was as of the 11 a.m. advisory when Melissa was first designated. Expected to stall just southeast of the Bahamas right here. Not the Bahamas, but Haiti right here in Hispaniola. And then by the time we got to the 11 p.m. advisory, it was expected to stall just off the coast of Jamaica. And then we saw a dramatic shift to the south right here, in part because of the uncertainty just becoming less and less uncertain, and also the European mainly remaining consistent with this. And if that track continues, we are on track for probably some of the greatest intensification we will ever see in the Atlantic if this track holds. And I am not exaggerating when I say this, and I'll go ahead and show you why as I show you satellite imagery. So here's your satellite imagery. We're going to go ahead and pull up the water vapor imagery just to first show you this. There's not much dry air anymore. A lot of it's been mixed out, and it's been replaced by a lot of this very, very powerful outflow at this current point. You're already seeing very strong outflow for Melissa as a 50-mile-per-hour storm. Melissa is definitely more organized now than it was yesterday, but it still has a long way to go in terms of it aligning, in terms of it getting stacked, in terms of a core building up. But once those three things happen, given we have a very moist environment, and given the shear is forecasted to lift over the next 72 hours or so, you're going to see a situation where, as long as this stays in the Caribbean, which is becoming increasingly likely given the models, you're going to have a scenario where this system could really explode in intensity. And I know I've said that for the third time already this video, but I am not exaggerating when I say that all the conditions are going to be primed for some of the greatest intensification you have ever seen, and I'll show you with the track models and the intensity models right now. So let's go ahead and pull up the current storms page on this right here. Here are your track models as of 12Z. First of all, what a dramatic shift compared to what we saw yesterday. What we saw yesterday, actually, we can go ahead and even show you the 18Z from yesterday. What we saw yesterday was essentially a lot of all over the place models right here. Half had them heading towards Hispaniola, half had them stalling towards Jamaica or moving into the Caribbean. Here's where we're at 12Z now. Boom. considerable shift to the west right here. That is going to really ramp up your intensity forecast right here. If you're in Haiti, you should still watch out for this. But if you're in Jamaica, and especially if you're in Cuba, you need to absolutely be prepared for this, because this system is going to be very powerful, and this system is going to take off as soon as that wind shear decreases. That is something I do not like to say, especially in terms of somebody getting impacted. In terms of what we saw with Aaron, it was mainly staying out to sea, but the Bahamas were still getting impacted, so were the Antilles for the outer bands. Humberto stayed out to sea, similar situation. We could be a little bit more lenient with that. But with this type of scenario where you have a tropical system potentially going to explode in the next few days in the Caribbean Sea, where regardless of where this goes, somebody's going to get impacted, you have to be more careful with what you say. And at least in this instance, I'm not afraid to say that this is going to be a very explosive storm. This is going to be a very explosive rate of intensification once the shear weakens, and a lot of people are going to be in for one hell of a ride when that happens. So that's your track guidance right here. Here's your intensity guidance, and things just continue to escalate. A lot of the hurricane models are now forecasting potentially Category 5 strength right there. The HMON, the HAVS A, and the HAVS B are all forecasting Category 5 intensity. You have the NIC at Category 4, ICON at Category 4. The majority of them hold it around Category 3, but these models continue to go up more and more and more and more. Before, these models were thinking Category 3 at the most. Now we have multiple models calling for Cat 5 and more calling for Cat 4, and the majority at major hurricane strength. That is a very rapid escalation, and I would not take this very lightly if you're in Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, the Bahamas, or even Florida, because at this point, because of these westward shifts, Florida could also see some impacts, not directly by landfall or anything like that, but mainly from the outer bands, some squall lines that are going to be produced by the hurricane. You guys could get potentially impacted, especially if this system explodes in intensity and undergoes multiple eyewall replacement cycles. That's only going to expand the storm in size. We're not quite there yet, but all the consensus and all the conditions are getting more and more clear as the days go on. And this is setting up to be a very scary type of situation for a lot of people. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and pull up some forecast models just to illustrate just how big of a situation this is going to be. We'll go ahead and start with the European. The European, I gotta say, has been the most consistent model, and it's been the most accurate model based on what I'm seeing now, because now all the models are shifting to pretty much caving to where the European's been advocating for multiple days now. So here's the European forecast for you guys right here. Mainly the system kind of consolidates, takes its time to organize. It's still battling shear for the next 72 hours. But as it stalls just off the coast of Jamaica right here, a little bit along the ways right here, it becomes a hurricane, and it really starts to rapidly intensify in, I would say, after about 4 days. This is 96 hours out right here, 994, strong tropical storm to weak hurricane. Then by 120 hours out, we're down to 980 millibars. That's likely high-end Category 1 strength at that point. And then you really start to turn up the intensity. Look at this, 949 by October 28th. That is quite problematic. And then 932 as it approaches Cuba and potentially smacks into Jamaica with hurricane force winds again. That is very concerning. Like, Jamaica could potentially see multiple days of rainfall from this. That's how serious this situation is. And then hurricane force winds on the western side of the island. So if you guys are tuning in from Jamaica, I know Weather Girl Danny's been absolutely watching this as well. Shout out to her. You guys need to be taking this very seriously. Maybe I'll have to talk to Weather Girl Danny. Maybe I can see if I can get her on for another interview, just like I did with Hurricane Beryl. I'll reach out to her as soon as I'm done recording this video to say, hey, would you want to do an interview this week about this? Because I think this would be very important, especially to get a perspective from her perspective on this as well, to present to you guys as well. But we'll see what happens right here. But this is the European, and not just Cuba is going to get hit or Jamaica. The Bahamas are in the line of fire to get a Category 3 or Category 4 hurricane at the end of this as well. Multiple islands are in the line of fire, and then potentially Bermuda if it moves that far to the east. But we're going to want to pay attention to that. And then Florida could see some outer bands if this moves further to the west according to the European forecast. So that's what you're dealing with right here. And one thing I need to note and explain why we're seeing this potentially big intensification phase is you're seeing this wind shear right here. The wind shear remains persistent for the next 48 hours, but by hour 60, it starts to decrease. And then you start to see this wind shear lifting up more to the north, and then this system shifting a little bit further to the south. That's going to enhance the outflow that's already been generating, and it's really going to turn up in terms of its intensity over the next few days. By October 22nd, we're already at a Category 2 hurricane. Look at this. It's in an area of zero shear by the time it drifts away from Jamaica temporarily. That is prime area for explosive intensification. And this is going to be a wild ride for those who are going to get impacted. That's just the European for you guys right there. There's some other models we need to show as well. We'll show the Canadian run as well. Here's the Canadian, mainly having the system south of Jamaica. But look at this. It's still blowing up in intensity. It's a bit more conservative than the European and a bit further to the west as well, wanting a Category 2 to hit central Cuba. But Florida will be in the line of fire in terms of his outer bands as well. And then much of the Bahamas will as well. So that's something we're going to want to pay attention to going forward. But that's your Canadian run. We need to show you the hurricane models as well. Here is your HMON run right here. The HMON is starting to come out a little bit more. Here's the 6C HMON that we have for you right here, just to kind of give you some context in regards to this. HMON has the system consolidating over the next few hours, and then by hour 60, it becomes a bit more organized, and you already start seeing pretty quick intensification south of Jamaica right here. Category 2 intensity by October 26th right here, then Category 3, and potentially Category 4 just off the coast of Jamaica. Literally, the eye wall and the core is right off the coast of southern Jamaica right there. That is the close call of the ages. Will this intensify near land, especially near Jamaica? Or will it drift a bit more out to sea? That's the main question we have right now, because there's no question in my mind that this is going to stay out to sea in regards to this potentially either making landfall in Haiti or staying out to sea and intensifying even faster. The question I have now is this potentially going to stay close enough to land to where when it intensifies, it could make the conditions even worse for the people that are going to get impacted? And that's what you have with your HMON, 932 millibars. What is your wind speeds looking at? That's Category 4 intensity right there, ladies and gentlemen, at least. And that's something you're going to want to pay attention to down the line. That's your HMON. Here's what we have for the Halves A run right here. Here's what we got for you right here. Here's the 6Z run. Unfortunately, the 12Z run isn't quite out yet, but Halves A having some problems with it originally, but then you do start to see the system start to consolidate and really ramp up in intensity. By the time we get to when is this? This is 60 hours out. By the time we get to 60 hours out, which will be on October 24th, by the time on October 25th, we're at 970 millibars and already a Category 2 hurricane in the next few days. And then the system really explodes in intensity as we get to the 27th, 925 millibars. The Halves A is advocating for a Category 5 hurricane. And then for the rest of the run, you're at 913, 905, 901 millibars right here. There is a possibility, and I hate to say this, that we could see a sub 900 millibar system with this. I do not like to say that, and the last time we saw that was with Hurricane Milton last year. If we see that in that part of the Caribbean, that is going to be a huge, huge concern and a huge problem. But we are seeing borderline sub 900 at this current point based on the Halves A. And we can also show you the Halves B as well. Halves B has the situation organizing, developing, and strengthening. And then as we get to 3 days out, this is October 25th. Then we go to 4 days out. We go from, what is this, 984 to 938. That's a Category 4 hurricane. That's pretty much strong tropical storm to Category 4 hurricane in the span of 24 hours. And then the system continues to bottom out. 900. This is a 165 mile per hour hurricane at 900 millibars. Take that with a pinch of salt. We'll keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel, but this has a very high ceiling, and this is potentially going to be very historic intensification. And I hate saying stuff like that. because I know it freaks people out, but please remain calm. Prepare. Don't be scared if you're in Cuba, Haiti, and Jamaica. That's all I have for you guys. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Stay safe.